All right, what's going on, y'all? Today, I want to talk just very briefly about multiplying and dividing with fractions. So, multiplying and dividing with fractions is very straightforward, very simple to remember. So, let's start with multiplying. All right, so when multiplying fractions, what you want to make sure of is that you just remember very simply multiply the top by the top and multiply the bottom times the bottom. That's it. It's very straightforward. So let's say we took the fraction 1/2 times 2/3. Okay. So multiply the top times the top, multiply the bottom times the bottom. Or if you want to be technical, multiply the numerator times the numerator, multiply the denominator times the denominator. So that is the same as 1 times 2, see, 1 times 2 over 2 times 3. And that gives you very simply 2, and then 2 times 3 is 6, 2 over 6. Now, we want to make sure, and I'm sorry I have a little glare on my board here, so let me write the answer here. All right, so you want to be certain that you also make sure you reduce your fraction. This can be reduced because um, both of these have 2 as a factor. Both of these 2 and 6 can both be divided by 2. If we divide both of those by 2, you can get that fraction in its simplest form. So that's the same as, so divide by 2, divide by 2. So that gives you 1/3. Now, what you could have done is also, um, you could have done this here. You could have reduced it up here before you even multiplied it out. 1/2 times 2/3 is the same as 1 times 2 over 2 times 3. You already see, remember that the fraction line here is the same thing as like a division sign, really. It's just like saying the top divided by the bottom. So if you look at that, you can say that this stuff up here is divided by this stuff down here. It's a 2 up here and a 2 down here. Those 2's will cancel. Well, they're 2 divided by 2 is 1 is what I'm trying to say. So those will go away. So there you go. The answer is 1/3. All right, so very straightforward. Whenever you multiply fractions, multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. Do all that stuff separate. Now, what about division? Division is a little bit more complicated, but it's not still not very complicated. So when dividing fractions, you want to remember this. When you divide fractions, it's the same thing as multiplying the first fraction times the reciprocal or the flip version of the second fraction. So, well, let me just write it out. So when you divide fractions, you change it to multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal. Reciprocal is just another way of saying the flipped version of the second one, second fraction. All right, so let's use those same 2 fractions. So say we had the problem 1/2 divided by 2/3. All right, 1/2 divided by 2/3. So since this is a division problem with fractions, remember what we do is this is going to change to 1/2 times the flip version of this fraction, which is 3/2. Okay? Now you just do multiplication of the fractions the same. Okay? So that becomes, that's the same as 1 times 3. See, 1 times 3 over 2 times 2. And that gives you 3/4. Okay? Very easy, very straightforward. Just remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you want to multiply the numerator times the numerator, or the top times the top, and the denominator times the denominator, or the bottom times the bottom. With dividing fractions, you want to change the problem so that you're multiplying whatever that first fraction is times the reciprocal of the second fraction, or the flip version of the second fraction. So that's why 2/3 became 3/2. Okay? And then you're just working with multiplication of fractions again. Very straightforward. Now, if you're talking about adding and subtracting fractions, then that's whenever you have to find like the common denominator and all that kind of stuff. Not with multiplying and dividing fractions. Very straightforward. All right? Good.